after nearly 5 years, this mystery, the FBI under the Trump administration has finally arrested someone. It's Brian J. Cole Jr. is his name, 30 years old, Woodbridge, Virginia. He's a prime suspect in planting those bombs outside the DNC and RNC headquarters. That was on January 5th of 2021. Now, those bombs were viable. They were very real. They could have detonated. And they were discovered amid, I want to say, when the Capitol chaos, when all that was going on. Well, of course, that diverted critical resources that could have been used that day when all that shit was going on. Instead, they were over here because somebody's screaming, "Oh, bombs, bombs!" So they went running over there. But I mean, the motive hasn't been confirmed yet. But early reports have linked him to like anarchist writings and shit like that. So it doesn't seem like this MAGA boogeyman that the left painted. So let's get into it. I don't know if you paid much attention to it, but they were talking about I think it was I want to say Alex Jones, but it's not. It's Glenn Beck. Him and his crew were blaming it on some white lesbian cop, some Capitol police officer. I mean, plastered her face all over the damn internet, blaming that shit on her. And it had nothing to do with her. It wound up being this guy here, and that's total opposite of a white lesbian lady cop. So I don't know where they got that information from, but they put that shit all over the internet. So that's, shame on Glenn Beck and them for doing that shit. They're as bad as the media, jumping to these damn conclusions, man. I guess everybody's looking for that click, but anyway, they, little details about what's going on now. They nabbed his ass out of a suburban Virginia home. He was charged with transporting explosives across state lines and attempting to destroy a building with IEDs, which doesn't sound like a good idea. Now, that this of course wasn't just some overnight miracle. I mean, it came from the FBI basically re-examining old evidence, like credit card buys for what they're saying bomb parts, wires and timers and shit like that from Home Depot. Cell phone pings placed him at the scene. So apparently he must have been on their list to begin with, because they were monitoring this and checking in all this shit, and it put him right at the spot. But I'll give it to Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They cracked what the Biden DOJ let gather dust for 4 years. So, I give them shit a lot on here because of how they handle the Epstein stuff. But, I guess I'll give them a little bit of praise on this one. But it was weird because this wasn't doesn't seem like it was directly targeting a certain political group. I mean, he allegedly placed one bomb in an alley by the RNC and another one on a bench by the DNC. So it was like equal opportunity terror, Of course, those bombs sat there undiscovered for, I think, 15 hours, only found as rioters breached the Capitol. Of course, this diverted Secret Service and Capitol Police right when the chaos hit. So I don't know why security wasn't tighter, which honestly, I think Trump has touched on that before, that, he requested thousands of troops to be out there, and it was turned down by the likes of Nancy Pelosi. So it's hard not to believe they wanted a bunch of this chaos to ensue. And, as soon as they found this bomb there, that was it. There comes the blame game, MAGA did it. MAGA did it right out the gate. The Democratic leaders, the media, MSNBC, CNN, all of them screaming pro-Trump extremist, pro-Trump extremist. That it had to be without zero evidence. I mean, I remember, what's her name? Maxine Waters was on X posting shit about domestic terrorists tied to the rally. That it basically they were weaponizing these bombs that were found to smear Trump supporters. Even as the FBI was saying, these devices were planted pre-rally. But it's it's not journalism that the media, when they were jumping on board with this too, man. It's just more propaganda. That's all we see from both sides, really. But anyway, how you doing tonight, Matt? We're gonna get into it. Don't worry, we're getting back to it. But anyway, if you're watching, I thank y'all for joining. Just getting into this pipe bomb shit that blew up today. No pun intended, but the story blew up. So anyway, now, you know, getting back to just how the media was. I mean, it was you know, the whole pro-Trump mob spin. You know, on CNN, January 8th, a couple of days after, you know, the J6 event, they're tweeting out, quote, the FBI is offering $50,000 reward for pipe bombs amid pro-Trump riots, end quote. So all that does really is it lumps it with the Capitol breach to imply some sort of connection, despite zero proof. You know, so you fast forward to today and you find out that this guy's no Trump fan. I mean, he's been linked to anarchist ideology, and you know, I don't know how many retractions you can expect to see from the media, but this is, you know, why trust in them is pretty much in the fucking toilet. So, and look, I give hell to CNN and you know, MSNBC and all them, but it's not like Fox News or any of them right-leaning news organizations are any better, I guess. I mean, you know, they're all biased one way or another. But just with this story here, you know, if we're just sticking with this story here, it was heavily on the left, you know, just pushing that Trump, MAGA did this, you know, MAGA's planting bombs. So, because matter of fact, you know, just to show that it's not like the right was innocent. I mean, the Dems were pointing at MAGA, but Trump allies like Dan Bongino, which is now the FBI deputy director, he was calling it an inside job by the feds to frame conservatives. Now, of course, that was when Biden's administration, you know, he was trying to blame it on them, I suppose. I mean, even though they weren't in there yet, I don't know. Somehow he was trying to say that the government was behind it. I guess because it doesn't matter what administration was in, you know, none of them wanted Trump in there. None of them. It didn't work, you know, for either side to have somebody like Trump in there. He steps on a lot of toes and he stops a lot of the bullshit that was going on behind the scenes. I mean, we saw that with Doge. You know, all the money that they uncovered was just going to, you know, parts unknown. So I suppose that's kind of what Bongino was getting at, you know, but his arrest, you know, Cole's arrest under the Trump, it exposes how the unsolved case fueled real conspiracies as far as was the government behind this. Because why didn't Biden's administration, the DOJ, you know, why didn't they do anything about this while they were in charge? You know, but instead the left was just mocking that as some kind of, you know, QAnon for questioning the delay, you know. So I don't know. Like I said, for 4 years, I mean, Biden's FBI, they chased these J6 rioters, you know, and basically turned them into political prisoners, but was letting this person who set these bombs basically walk free. I mean, they reviewed, I think they said 40,000 some odd videos, interviewed thousands of people, yet no arrest until Patel and Bongino took over. So, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, Bondi kind of nailed it. You know, she was saying that she was quoted as saying something that this cold case languished until the Trump team prioritized it, you know, and it's true. I mean, it sat still now. Doesn't excuse Bondi and them for this Epstein shit that's going on, you know, at all. Doesn't excuse that. But like I said, we'll take a win when we can get it, you know, but it's a twist they won't like, you know, the media when it comes to this guy, this Cole guy, because, you know, as I said, the sources say that he's got ties to anarchist writings, you know, and anti-government rage, you know, no red hats. There's no MAGA hats. You know, this kind of shatters the dim script that J6 was a, you know, pure Trump fueled terror, you know. Now, I'm not saying this guy was a Democrat either, but he wasn't what they were painting him to be. You know, we were expecting them to catch somebody in a MAGA hat, you know, flying a Trump flag in their yard, and it's not the case. So, but anyway, it seems like more of a, you know, Antifa style violence or something. I don't know. They're going to release more as it comes, I'm sure, you know, so we'll get a little bit more to the bottom of this. But anyway, if you're just tuning in, I welcome you. I'm just running my mouth a little bit on here. You know, I appreciate y'all joining. Slow night, but we're going to get into it a little bit more. Let's see what else they're claiming here. Let's see. The bombs discovered at 1 p.m., one just before the first breach. The other as Proud Boys hit the West Front. Capitol Police said it plainly. If intended as a diversion, it worked. That's the big question, because these bombs didn't go off. So it's got, you know, everybody wondering if they were planted there to divert, you know, and by who? You know, were they trying to get attention away from that Capitol and draw all the, you know, law enforcement and everybody away from there, which it did, you know, at least away from where all the you know, rioters were at, or the crowds were gathering. So if that was the plan, it worked. Well, like I said, the bombs didn't go off. So I don't even know if they were intended to go off. I mean, they said they could have, like they were real bombs, but, you know, they did not detonate. So who knows? That's something else that's yet to be answered. And, you know, we'll, of course, pay attention to that, see how that goes. But they, you know, they use some crazy tactics to find it. I was reading up on a little bit of it. You know, Patel's FBI used you know what they call needle in the haystack forensics. The Nikes that the dude was wearing, supposedly they're like 25,000 pairs sold, you know, or a little bit under that was sold in the U.S. So they were kind of able to narrow it down by that a little bit. You know, I guess they had to go track all these sales for this certain Nike shoe that he was wearing. You know, license plate readers helped him out, and bank records. So, like I said, this guy must have been on their radar for a little while, as it seems like they've been doing their research and really getting their shit together before they, you know, threw any charges at him, just to make sure they covered everything. So apparently they've been at this for a little bit, but he said he was arrested in about 90 minutes. He was down, had his ass. You know, it took, like I said, them a little bit over a year to do what the DOJ under Biden couldn't do in 4, but not like they were trying to, but, and I don't know why, because as of right now, they're not really saying he's got any political ties, you know, that I've read. So you would think the Democrats would be just as hell bent to find this guy, especially when they were running around. He was a MAGA extremist. Well, you figure they'd have been on top of that shit trying to find out who that was. It almost makes you think they knew from the beginning that this guy had nothing to do with Trump or you know, a Trump supporter or anything like that. Because, like I said, if anything, that would make them want to go even harder at finding this guy. So that doesn't make a lot of sense to me on why the Dems didn't go harder at this, you know, and it just opens up more of the conspiracies, I guess. But I don't know. They said, you know, the Pelosi's January 6th committee, of course, they were obsessing over Trump tweets, but ignored this bomb for years. You know, I mean, it's Hakeem Jeffries was blasting these J6 pardons as celebrating a bloodthirsty mob, yet, you know, he was silent on why their own headquarters was targeted and unsolved. Because, like I said, there was a bomb put outside of the DNC also. If it was MAGA, they'd scream 24/7. It's odd. It strikes me as odd. Maybe I'm digging too deep into it, but it just seems like if they really believed this was some sort of act from the MAGA cult, and which it can be, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to, you know, pacify them either, because they can. Some of them guys are hardcore, them guys and girls on that MAGA side. My God. But apparently he wasn't one of them. So, you know, and like I said, they weren't much better, with a lot of people on the right, you know, speculating that the feds planted this to frame Trump, you know. And I mentioned earlier that the Blaze, Glenn Beck's, little thing he's got going on, even named a Capitol cop. And but the Dems, the right-wing bomber trope was the real poison. I mean, it justified big tech's censorship and FBI raids on innocent people, so I don't know. It Cole's arrest, it kind of closes one door, but it sure opens up a lot of questions and on media manipulation for one. So which I'm more concerned about the political manipulation, the politics, the people that are supposed to be representing this country. I know the media is going to do what the media does. They're going to pick a side and they're going to stick with it. But when something like this happens and they find bombs around both headquarters, Democrat and Republican, you figured everybody would be on board trying to figure out what the hell was going on with this. So that's my, where I'm going with it and why I'm more concerned about that. I want to know what the hell was going on. Why weren't these Democrats pushing harder? It makes you wonder, it makes you think. But so I don't know, man. They it's don't know, like I said, if we'll get any kind of apologies from the media, if they're going to sit there and suck it up. And people like the Washington Post and the New York Times, I mean, they were running these MAGA threat headlines, tying these bombs to the rally, and it's kind of bearing stories. You probably won't be able to find much on this guy and his anarchist ways unless you really dig. But yeah, I don't know. We need accountability, man, especially when it comes to these politicians that decided that this wasn't a priority, because there's a reason for that. There's a reason it wasn't a priority on one side, and it's shitty to think that there's some kind of malice intent going on, but it's not like the government's never pulled any kind of funny shit like this before. So, I guess it wouldn't be too surprised, but it's I don't know, like I said, give it up to the FBI. They did their job. Still ain't giving them some bitches no slack on the Epstein files, though. They pissed me off with that one. They handled that shit totally wrong. So you don't think it's malice, Matt? At least on the Dem side, like that, like they wanted some, just some ill intent going on. I don't know, man. It's like I said, it doesn't sit well with me that they didn't dig into this anymore than they did. And it just kind of hit me while I was, talking about all of it, that it's like, well, wait a second. If they, MAGA, but we're not going to look into it. It makes zero sense at all. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Well, no, I think most folk good. Well, I like that, Matt. Except for the guy you were getting into it with last night on here. He was going kind of hard. Matt, you got to find a way to get in touch with me, though. And like I said, give me I got you. I think I got your address anyway, because you kind of foolishly gave it out last night. So I think I have it. So I'll try to get you some merch sent for sure. Not try, I will. I'll get it done. But anyway, I just wanted to get into that, like I said, real quick. It's not our normal night, and the guys aren't even here. I was, figuring I'd wing it by myself. Just wanted to talk about that J6 bombing while it was going on. But a lot to be learned still. Hopefully they'll start releasing information as they get it and not hold too much from the public. It's going to be a lengthy process, like everything is when it comes to prosecuting these people and, all that good stuff. So it'll be talked about for a while. I guess we'll be right there alongside to talk about it. So anyway, all right. Well, Matt, you have a good night. Everybody else, y'all be good. I'm going to get off of here. We'll be back at it full steam in the next couple of days. And I'm going to hunt down your address, Matt, and I'm going to send you some shit. So y'all be good.